Today's episode of Lone Star Lawyers on the Varsity Podcast Network is brought to you by Varsity Search. Varsity Search builds great teams by connecting lawyers in Texas with career opportunities at small and boutique law firms. So if you're thinking of making a move or your law firm is looking to hire, please go to varsitysearch.com and book a time to visit right into my calendar. Varsity Search, building great teams. Hey everyone, Daniel Hare back with you on Lone Star Lawyers. I hope you and your family are both healthy and safe. Before we get into this episode, I want to let you know that we will take a 2-week break after this episode, and we'll then come back on Monday, January 11th. So this will be the final episode of 2020, a memorable year in so many ways. And I very much appreciate you going on this wild ride with us and listening to the show. And don't worry, we already have some great guests lined up for 2021 and plans to add even more content to this feed, so please stay tuned. All right, today we are in Dallas, where our guest is Rhodes Hamilton. Rhodes is a board-certified oil, gas, and mineral lawyer and is a founding partner at Hamilton and Squibb, an oil and gas boutique where he represents exploration and production companies that are developing natural resource plays. Rhodes' practice includes title examination, regulatory advice, and general operational matters. He is involved or in leadership in a number of oil and gas associations and other community organizations in and around Dallas. All right, with that, let's hop into our conversation with Rhodes Hamilton on today's Monday Mentors episode of Lone Star Lawyers. Rhodes Hamilton joins us right now. Rhodes, thanks for taking the time to be with us.
Sure, you bet, Daniel. Absolutely, my pleasure.
It's good to see you again and looking forward to the conversation. Why don't we start by just having you share with us a little about your firm and your practice. You all are specialized in what you do and really good at it. And I want to let the folks know what that is. And tell us kind of too how you got how it got started. And would love to just hear a little bit the story of the firm.
Yeah. So the story is I'm partnered with Hamilton Squibb. We are in Dallas, Texas. We've got an office in Dallas, an office in Fort Worth. So we've got DFW covered. And we are a oil and gas kind of boutique, transactional, mostly upstream, some midstream, transactional practice. We've got about 10 lawyers right now, two in Fort Worth, and the rest are in Dallas. And my story is basically I got out of law school in 2005. Right when sort of oil and gas, I didn't even take oil and gas in law school. So, so go figure, I don't know if that's not a question you're going to ask me, but that's one of the small ironies of my story is I didn't even take oil and gas in law school.
Yeah.
The question on the bar exam for us was, about the Relinquishment Act. So a very tiny portion of the bar exam covered oil and gas, where now it's larger now, but I got out in 2005, and oil and gas really kind of started to ramp up and started kind of blowing and going about the time I got out. So part of it was good timing, but I started with an oil and gas operating company in Fort Worth that was in the Barnett Shale, which is Tarrant County.
Yep.
It's a natural gas play, and I started out working for them in 2005, and then did that for about 2.5 years until finally I was driving to Fort Worth every day and just had an opportunity with my partner now to kind of start our own practice. We just kind of saw a little window.
Yeah. And
so we started the firm in 2008, the spring of 2008, and promptly watched gas prices bottom out, but we've kind of managed through that. And we've done that a couple of times now, but we're still here kicking. Right. My story was that I started somewhere and saw an opportunity, and also didn't want to drive to Fort Worth every day. We love Fort Worth, but our home was in here, and we were about to have our first kid. So we took a shot and opened the firm with my partner, Cliff Squibb, and I.
That is awesome. So when you did that, when you were only, like you said, 2 or 3 years out of law school, when you made that decision to jump onto your own, into your own firm, what was the What was the most exciting thing that drove you to do that? The kind of the upside that you saw. What was the scariest part about it when you did it?
Yeah, I like to tell people it was the easiest hard decision I ever had. Right, where it was like super, like didn't have any kids, but was about to have one.
Right,
and it so there's risk on the table there. With had a mortgage, right, had a car payment,
sure,
and was just kind of cautiously there, but also knew that there was a great opportunity and knew that I could do it, especially with a partner. And so it was just kind of a no-brainer from the standpoint of like, this is a great, we can do this. We've thought this through. We've kind of seen a bunch of problems or seen some of the issues up front, and we're fairly confident in our abilities. And we knew there was a lot, and we knew there was plenty of work out there, which is also good time, the timing sense of it. And so we just we jumped for it. We went for it. He was in private practice at the time and had, we had some lead on some pretty good clients. And it just kind of worked out.
Wow. Well, that's really cool. So now, fast forward to today, and we're obviously in I think when you jump into the oil and gas business or the law practice, you know that you're in for some ups and downs, as I think we all know, and you sort of expect that, but you don't expect a once in a century pandemic to creep up at the same time.
Right.
What has the last few months been like for you guys, and specifically, what maybe has impacted the oil and gas business and your practice in maybe a different way, if there is one, from kind of what everyone else is going through right now?
Yeah. From a oil and gas perspective, obviously, there was that day, and I should know the day by now, April 15th or 17th, something like that, where, oil prices went negative, right? So that's obviously kind of a bench,
right.
That's a benchmark for us.
Yeah.
And so,
right.
it's been a, I made the joke about '08 gas prices cratering, and we've been through a couple other crashes, but nothing like this, to where it's just an outright destruction of capital from a lot of our clients. Several clients filing bankruptcy. We've done more bankruptcy work than we've ever done before. And we've just seen wholesale kind of retraction across the board, to where, the past couple of years have been a really good years for the firm, and this year is going to be different. It's just going to be real different because it's just been across the board, and it's industry wide. I think you've got some guys that do bankruptcy and maybe some workout stuff have been fairly busy, but on our side, on the upstream kind of transactional stuff, like there's just not a lot of transacting. There's a lot of contracting, but there's not a lot of transacting. So we've seen a real step back in terms of our kind of day-to-day operation.
Yeah. And also in terms of how your firm has been operating during and through COVID, what has that been like? We're recording this on December 3rd for people listening later, and so we know that things can change quite a bit from month to month with this thing. But as of right now, what has been sort of the model that you have adopted and are working in right now?
So presently we are back in our office 100%. We went back in the office as soon as kind of some of those the stay-at-home order listed in Dallas, and we kind of gave everybody the option. And we're a smaller shop, and so everyone's got their own space, and it works in terms of some of our practices. Sometimes, we weren't caught entirely flat-footed with the work from home remote model, but we had to kind of adapt on the fly. And so we still have that in the background running, and we've definitely kind of trended more towards that's happening more. But for the most part, a lot of our people are back in the office. A lot of it's kind of, it's just, that's where everyone kind of likes to be. And it's kind of worked out that way. But we've definitely been, willingness to work from home has gone up, and people have been doing it more. I've been doing it more. But on the day to day, we're back to the office, I would say 80% of the time.
Yeah.
We'll see what can happen going forward. Like you said, December 3rd.
Yeah, that's right. Well, and in terms of having a more of a transactional practice without some of the pressures of the or kind of the pressures to be somewhere specifically, like litigation would put you in the courthouse or put you in a deposition or put you in a hearing. With your practice, have you mostly been able to maintain kind of the normal client communication processes that you've had in the past, or would you normally have more in-person type meetings with clients that you've been able, or you've had to kind of kick to phone or Zoom or something else? What's that look like?
Yeah, no, we've definitely had to put a lot of stuff on call. There are a lot of calls already, but more so in this time frame, we're definitely doing more calls, or Teams meetings or Zoom calls. And then less FaceTime in general, which with our clients that's how we kind of stay on top of people and develop business, and so that's been kind of a setback too. But for the most part, the productive time with us is spent over email, or transacting documents, and so that hasn't been that big of a setback. And the phone is we're always on the phone, but there's definitely been a less of a FaceTime, and you kind of don't feel that connection sometimes with some of our clients. We've talked to them, but we probably haven't seen them in face to face in months, right?
Yeah.
6 or a year maybe.
Yeah. No, it's a tough time. I mean, this is a client service business. A lot of it is that, that trust that builds up just from shaking hands and having a meal and all those things. You just can't do some of that right now. And it makes it extra hard. When you look into 2021, what are you seeing? What are you expecting in terms of your practice and in the oil and gas industry more broadly? What are you looking at right now?
Yeah, we're looking at. We think that there's going to be, it's going to be better than it was last year. And it's going to be a little bit of a interesting first quarter. I think it'll be busier. I think it'll definitely be busier, and things are going to pick up a little bit. We've had some consolidation with clients. We've had some consolidation, and retrenching for people where they're just trying to do stuff cheaper. They're trying to do it more economic. We've had kind of discussions about doing rate cuts or things like that, or trying to do stuff, just help clients out.
Sure.
I think that overall, it's got to be better than 2020 for us.
Right. That's a low baseline, right, for everybody.
Yeah. I mean, by no means is that binding, but just the way it's been such a shock to the system is that people are kind of, Q1, Q2 budgets, people still have to spend money, and I think the pricing the commodity pricing right now has been on its way up, and I think that as you kind of get into the hopefully the knock on wood tail end of the pandemic with vaccines and stuff, you'll see some demand go back up, and we're hoping for a better 21.
Yeah, good. Well, I want to change gears a little bit and ask you about, most of the people that listen to this show are young lawyers, associates, maybe in their first few years of practice, and want to give them some good tips and advice. What is something that you learned in those first couple of years before you branched out on your own? What's something that you picked up from where you started that has been a key component of your practice and who you are today as a lawyer?
Yeah, I think one of the things I had to kind of learn early on was just being flexible. It was like we kind of got tasked with a bunch of different stuff, and I was okay, going to the courthouses one day, or being in the office one day, or meeting with a certain, it wasn't. I wasn't in a firm. I was working at a company, so it was different hats. I was wearing a lot of different hats, and we're a landowner or a government official. So we had a question about some setbacks or a new lease or oil and gas lease. So just kind of being flexible and not willing to really kind of, this is what I was hired to do, but I'm going to have to do this today. Okay. That wasn't a problem to me because I viewed it as a little bit of a change of pace. I got to learn something else, and just a willingness to say yes.
That's cool. And when you then branched over into or left and started your own firm, what was the first big lesson that you got from having your own? Was that on day one?
Right. Where to start? I think the biggest lesson that we learn is that you just always got to be developing business like in the service business. Like it's never, you can't count on just hanging a shingle. Some people can, maybe in a one horse town you could, but in a competitive marketplace, you've got to be able to set yourself apart or somehow have enough of a book to maintain, business and up and down times, like, especially in oil and gas, where like,
Sure.
clients are coming in and out all the time, but you need a good book to kind of be able to maintain and keep things up. But just, kind of where our first lesson was like, well, we got this one client. Well, one day they stop, and then what? Right.
Yeah,
And you
right.
kind of think that you could always be doing something, and you need to be doing something every day, as hard as that is. And especially it's super hard right now to where if you can't even, no one's even, some people are taking meetings, and I've had some lunches, but for the most part, there's still a lot of no's from people. So, but just not to be short-sighted in that, don't get full of yourself to think that you're, the greatest thing on paper when you really need to be out there pounding the pavement, whether that's literally shaking hands or writing or speaking or advertising, you've just got to be doing something.
Yeah. And I'm glad you mentioned that, because when you started your firm, that you absolutely had to do that, or you wouldn't have been able to survive as a firm.
Right.
If there's a third year associate that's in your firm right now, what would your advice to that person be about how to and when and to go about building business and starting to develop that book of clients when you're working within a firm setting as an associate?
Yeah. That's a great kind of point to where I was. Yeah, because obviously if you're working in a firm and a lot of your listeners are probably right out of law school or looking for a job, and like you're not expected to do that, and you kind of get fed and like, look, I from our perspective as I think it's overall healthy, where I feel like I would be doing a younger lawyer a disservice if I kept them chained to a desk all the time, so to speak, right? And it's not literal, just figuratively. So if we try to encourage it. It's different personalities where we encourage it to get people out there and like, hey, you want to go to this or you want to be a member of this? Great. We'd like you to go. And because, look, I'm also to the point in my life stage where I've got, a bunch of kids at the house and I've got commitments. Otherwise, that makes it hard for me to get to some of that, that 5:30 happy hour at something. Right. And so if we can have a presence there, that's great. Right. Yeah. And if it develops into a relationship that he brings something to the firm, then we are willing to talk to them and work something out, via compensation wise, because like what's good for the goose is good for the gander. So we never try to. I think that's a different answer than you get at a big AM 100 whatever law firm, because that's a different model. But for our model, it's and just my personality is like a well-rounded. We're looking for someone that's well-rounded in general, and so we want someone that would be hungry enough to go do that. And I think you can't, especially from a personality standpoint, if they want to do it, it's really hard to discourage that as well. You can't leave them kind of scratching at it. So we really just kind of, to summarize that long-winded answer, but just we try to encourage it. I mean, we're okay with it. If you're spending too much time doing at the cost of other stuff that we know is productive, or we know is like if there's work to be done, then that's a different conversation. But overall, it's like, hey, we want to say yes to that question.
No, that's good, and that's a good. I'm glad you brought it kind of to close on that point. Is that there's a right way to, within each firm, it's going to be different, but to percentage out your time to the kind of, the billable assigned time to be productive and all that, versus then the time to go and develop and speak and write and business develop and all that stuff. And I think the communication between the associate and the partners needs to be really, clear on that, so that expectations are met and people aren't off doing stuff when they're, maybe beyond the time that they should have, or less than, like if they're not doing any of it and they're supposed to be doing some of it, that kind of, so it all can, the communication piece is big there. Well, and then when you're evaluating or observing associates that have worked for you over the years, what's something that stands out as like a real positive from the standpoint of when you see an associate doing X? You're happy, you think they're on the right track, they're getting it, all that.
I think the phrase you just said, getting it, is what we like to see, where it's like, okay, well, there's ground taken here. We're like, well, okay, well, the first time we had to really go through and go A to Z, and the second time, they're already on step 4 as far as instruction wise, and like, great, we want to just see someone that's got a willingness to kind of listen and like and be ahead, because you can usually we can tell if someone's kind of grasping it and like if they're going to need more, a little bit more hand holding or working, but just overall just a willingness to kind of just to listen and like take not constructive criticism or comments and directions. Well, it really goes a long way as opposed to, having to start back over on something every time.
So it sounds like you're really concerned most about the progress that's being made from 1 month to the next or 1 year to the next, and seeing that progression in the right. It's just good to see progress, because we know then we feel like we can, we can teach some other things, but if they're grasping it and stuff soaking in, then we want to just see that to know that we've, confirmation of like, we don't hire, we're a smaller firm, so we're not hiring 10 people a year. We maybe 1 or 2 a year. Right.
And then we kind of grow them and train them for a long time. So it's very important, especially in a smaller firm environment, which, some of your listeners would be interested in, but like there's much more, on a per dollar basis, Baker Botts might have more invested on them, be it salary and CLE and stuff like that. But like on from a smaller firm perspective, like the value is much greater because, you're a bigger piece of the cog, a bigger piece of the pie, and that training and so it's that much more valuable to the firm as opposed to just being a little bit small, in a bigger firm, there's less, they've got more people than we do. It's literally how it comes down to.
Right. What's something that if you see it in an associate, you're really, there's a red flag goes up, you're hopping on to, we got to put a stop to this, or this person's not going to work, or what's the flip side? What's the negative that you see that you want to try to get rid of?
Yeah, I would say, either kind of that lack of progress would be one, and then kind of like, taking things for granted. Like we want to see people in the office. We want to see people working. Like they don't have to be in the office, but just applying themselves. Like we don't think too much of ourselves, but we like to think that we give we compensate people well and take people well. So we want to see people apply themselves, and just kind of seeing people that are not willing to kind of commit and jump in with both feet.
Right.
And there's some things you can tell, and personality, you want to take personality aside and getting the work done. That's one thing, right? Because there's different types of creatures, right? They're all different types of creatures, but we want to see somebody that's, they're using their gift at the firm, and great. Like we're on board with that and we're okay with that.
Yeah.
But we just want to see whatever their gift is and however they're tasked with doing it. We just want to see them committed to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's good. And then when you go through, like you mentioned, and I think this is really important because we talk to a lot of folks here that are either in small firms or moving to small firms. So I think it's very relevant. When you're going through the process of hiring an associate, like you said, it's not going to be 10 a year. It's going to be once a year or twice, maybe once every 2 years, or just depending on what's going on. What are maybe 1 or 2 things that you're looking for, starting with just on paper, like on a resume, cover letter? What are things that jump out to you that you're looking for there?
Yeah, I mean, on a resume cover paper, you don't have to be, in top 5% for us or top 10%, whatever. We just want to see an interest in oil and gas, be it, you taking the classes, and look, you've joined the energy section, or you've done a clerkship at, the railroad commission, or just something that's really caught our eye. That's like, this person wants to be here, as opposed to, you can see, you've seen our resumes as well. Well, you're applying for this position, but, the last 3 years don't really show that to me that you want to be doing this.
Right.
And so we don't have to be someone's first choice, right? Because they're talented people that might not get, and we'll take talented people all day long.
Yeah.
But if from someone, we just want to see that they've got a definite interest in it, because we know that they've got an interest with it, and they've got decent grades, then we can teach them, and they want to have a committedness to be involved and be here and grow with us.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's good. And when you get that person into an interview setting, what's something that they can do to stand out in an interview and convince you even more that they're the right person?
Yeah, I think for us as well, being in a small firm, just fit is really important too.
Yeah,
we just got to feel, and that's hard to pin down. And like I'm sure in your job, you can't exactly. That's hard to do as well. But we just kind of have there's got to be a fit there, because again, it's back to you're one of 10, then that's 10% of it versus another number at a bigger firm. But the fit's got to be important because there's way more interaction, and it's a smaller. A lot more connectivity. It's just got to be a good fit. And again, back to, the resume part of it is just, we've got to show, we just want to see somebody that's gotten, decent grades, that's trying hard, right? If you're, if you can explain, if you got, my first semester of law school, I got a D in a class, and I thought it was over. But I just had to go keep working at it. And if you can explain that and show that, then we'll deal with that as we come along, because we show that you learned something and you grew.
Yeah. What you mentioned that in your story that you didn't take oil and gas when you were in law school, so for maybe people that are out practicing and, maybe they're in their third year or something, and they took, a job out of law school doing something else. Maybe it's transactional work, not oil and gas, transactional work or something like that. What would you advise that person if they decide, hey, you know what, I think I really would be good at and would like to do oil and gas work, and looking to make that change, but they don't really have it, in their classes or in their actual experience to date? What would you advise that person to do to try to make that transition?
Yeah. I would say for starters, it's, you've just got to get yourself involved, right? So whether it be an association or a trade group or something, you've got to start making connections and getting involved. On the legal aspect, there's a lot of good outlets. There's a lot of good resources. The state bar section for oil and gas I was a member of was really good and really helpful. Puts a lot of good resources out there. If you want to do something, I would just say for us is just to show you're committed to it, right? You can be, if you want to get into it, just show someone that you're committed to doing, this is what I want to do, and your actions and, your resume can show that. And like for us, we would be like, yeah, sure. If you did 3 years of IP, litigation, but now you want to do this? Okay, well, let's see. Showing us that you're committed and you're interested in, I think we wouldn't have a problem with that at all. But you definitely have to start with a little bit of a base of knowledge. But look, we can teach some of the fundamentals pretty easily because it's a contract, or they've taken contracts on law school and they would know what a contract looks like, or they've got some real property bouncing around inside their head. And we can teach some of the other oil and gas, the gassier aspects of that. But as long as they've got some of that, they've got good bone structure on them, then we can do a lot with that. But just to show us a willingness that this is what you're really interested in this. And again, it's not just it's the hot thing, so I want to get into it. But if you want to show you're committed to it, then let's definitely talk. Yeah,
good. Work-life balance is a topic that bounces around and has certainly hit the legal profession in the last year or two, kind of at a extra hard, it seems like. And I think the pandemic has only accelerated that conversation in terms of how we work and when we work and all of that. I know that for many young associates, it's a tough topic and issue because they want to ask about it, but they know if they do, they're probably looked at as, they don't want to work. Or they're just trying to figure out what's the right approach, when I'm trying to just become a better lawyer and learn this craft, in my first few years, especially. I don't know what I'm doing yet. How do you all deal with that? How do you think about it, and with the way your firm's set up, and what do you tell your younger lawyers about trying to, make room for life outside of work or not, or what does that look like?
Yeah. No. We definitely want, we want people to be well-rounded and to have a life. And so, I would say we are not opposed to, hey, especially during the pandemic, if things were slower, we're, hey, it's 3:00 on a Friday, get out of here, right? It's a nice day outside. We are totally okay with that, and want people to have, a life outside of the office.
Mm-hmm.
As a, one of the things about a small firm is that it's got some flexibility. For me, especially, as a, I've got, small kids at home, and my schedule gets a little bit wacky sometimes, and I can definitely empathize if somebody wants to take a little bit of a break, and we are by no means a sweatshop. But I would just say, all that aside, what we want to see is just, hey, show a willingness to get the job done. If you're willing to, hey, if there's this thing that's burning that's got to get done, hey, and I know that you worked a Saturday or a couple days a week and stayed past the cleaning guy, you want to take a Friday off? Great. As long as the work is getting done, right? Then we're okay with it. But just if you're showing that willingness to kind of jump in and get things done, then I think we can talk schedule all day long.
Yeah.
Again, back to that parameters of like, as long as this is getting done and you're showing that you're accretive to the firm, then we're willingness to work with people on that balance.
Yeah. That's awesome. Anything else that you would want to share before we wind up our time here? I know it's gone fast, but
no, it did. It definitely did.
What have we not touched on, if anything, that you would want to end with?
I think one thing I think we've tried to encourage at the firm, and we've tried to do, is just to be, you can be a lawyer, but you can get into other things as well, whether it be some pro bono activities or doing, having a side hustle or something like that. It's not, it's not opposed to being back to that well-roundedness. It's gotten, to the fact where, we want people that have other interests outside of, or hobbies, right? I spend a lot of time fishing. So that's one of the things we want to see, people that have that work-life balance, and we're not afraid to have, whether it be a side business or, a hobby like that. Just don't be afraid to kind of voice that and express that in the firm. And let people know that that's who you are, because what we've also seen is like, that's a development tool as well for some people.
Absolutely. No, that's good to hear. Well, we've got some rapid fire questions to end our time with.
Oh, yeah.
If you are ready, let's do those.
Yeah, go for it.
All right. Name the one trait or characteristic that you most want to see in an associate.
Willingness.
I like it. What habit has been key to your success?
Just be in front of trends, be in front of things.
Yeah. There you go.
Anticipation.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's good. Your favorite app or productivity tool?
I've since before March, I don't really know if I have one besides email, but since March is like, I really like Teams. We've used Microsoft Teams for kind of, has been super handy. And we were paying for it, but not using it.
Yeah.
But now we use it quite a bit.
Yeah, we last week talked to another guest who also, they've been using Teams, and so I think that's definitely one that's picked up over the last 6 months. It sounds like.
Yeah, it's kind of replaced some of the texting, and like you can exchange documents and you can just do a lot, and there's a running kind of list of, and you can it's just super handy, and it's very. Its flexibility is good too, because you can have calls, you can have video, you can exchange documents, you can save documents within it. It's been super handy for us.
Cool. Well, I'm glad to hear that. Your favorite social distancing activity?
Yeah, I don't know if I really have one. I just
extra
I wish
fishing.
I could have, fishing. Yeah, fishing's good. That's right. Besides the people on the boat who are usually my sons, and I guess that counts. Yeah.
Sure.
But between having a lot of kids and everything like that, we spend a lot of time outside in general. So I would probably say being outside.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a good one. Lastly, your favorite legal movie?
Yeah. It's funny you asked me that question, because we just got off Thanksgiving break.
Yep.
And during Thanksgiving break, HBO Max had like all the channels on for free.
Okay.
You notice that? Or we don't have HBO at our house. And so
Yeah, no.
My wife and I had put the kids to bed and we watched The Firm. And I was like, I really like this movie.
So good.
Because it was great. And I think that was one of Grisham's first book, and I'm sure I read it whenever it came out and loved it. And but it's just a good story, and we both were like, oh, we haven't seen this movie in 10 years, but we really like this movie. So
yeah, it's super interesting. So we just did on this podcast feed every about month or two, we do a legal movie deep dive. And The Firm is on the list to do. We haven't done it yet, and for a number of reasons. We actually did Runaway Jury, which was another Grisham movie with also Gene Hackman, and John Cusack.
Is that the one with the river, or there's a spill in the mining town or something like that?
Oh no! So this one is it's a gun shooting case, and Gene Hackman plays the jury consultant that tries to steal the jury, basically.
Yeah.
And Cusack tries to, okay. So that's that one. That's John Grisham. So, but in that research for that episode, I went back to look at some of the Grisham stuff from earlier, and you're right. So The Firm was his first hit. He actually wrote A Time to Kill first, and it didn't do that well as a book. Okay. It got popular as a movie with Matthew McConaughey was sort of his first deal, and Ashley Judd was in it, and that was a really good movie. But then The Firm came first as a movie, and and the book was a blockbuster. The Firm it was his first big hit. But apparently, Time to Kill did not do well as a book. So, but that was his first one. But The Firm was his second one, and it was huge. So there's a lot of neat Grisham legal movie stuff from 1990 to 2006. There's just a ton of it.
Right.
All right. Well, Rhodes, really appreciate you taking the time. I know that as we've talked about today, a lot going on: business, firm, family, fishing, and so thank you for sharing some of your time here with us. So I really appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely, Daniel. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed catching up, and good to see you again, and good luck to you.
All right, my thanks again to Rhodes Hamilton for joining us on the show. If you enjoyed this episode, would you consider doing two things? Would you subscribe so you don't miss an episode? And then would you rate and review the podcast in Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts? If you have suggestions or thoughts about the show, or if I could help you in any way, please email me, daniel@varsitysearch.com. Also, don't forget, this is the final episode of 2020, and that we will be back with brand new episodes beginning January 11th, 2021. So have a Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Happy New Year, and we'll see you right back here in 3 weeks.